Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a lovely day. Today I want to do a money themed video and I want to share with you 9 things I wish I had known sooner and started sooner on my savings journey. I'm going to break this down into 3 key areas. The first being the way we think about spending, the second being the way we think about saving, and the third being the way we think about investing. If you haven't invested before, or you're new to investing, or you want to invest, stick around till the end because I think there are a few useful tips in there for beginners. And just as a disclaimer, I am not an expert when it comes to finance. I have not been given this advice from a professional. These are just tips and tricks I have learned along the way that I thought might be useful to share with you. And just a reminder, we are all on our own individual journeys and everyone's financial situation is different. So whilst not all 9 tips may apply to you, hopefully you'll be able to take something away from this video. So let's jump right in with the first category, which is how we think about and how we manage our spending. My first piece of advice would be to absolutely minimize, where possible, taking out personal loans or buying things on credit where you then have to pay back for them later. For the vast majority of the time, I generally have a rule of if I haven't got the money for it, I can't afford to buy it, and I don't believe in buying things that I can't afford. I personally have 2 exceptions to this rule. One is my mortgage, because I couldn't afford to buy a house outright, but it was very important for me to get onto the property ladder. So that is one very big loan that I do have. And the other was my student loans. I considered that an investment to get me to where I needed to be in my career, and now I am paying that back. But I have never taken out a loan for anything else and never bought anything on credit, even down to my car. My husband and I, we purposefully bought cheaper cars that we could pay cash for rather than taking out cars on finance. So really do consider your purchases that you make and whether or not you should be buying them, because I would argue if you can't afford to make that purchase, you really shouldn't be. Another thing to consider is having a credit card. If you can trust yourself to have a credit card and not go really spendy with it, then fair enough. But if you can't trust yourself, or if you're not going to be able to pay it off in full every month, then maybe you should consider either not having one or not taking it out and about with you where you're likely to spend on it. I see a credit card as just another way of spending the money I have, because I know I will pay it off in full every single month. If you're using a credit card to spend money you don't have, that could lead to you getting into debt and having some problems with your finances. So do be very careful if you have a credit card. Tip number 2 is then to think about, well, what about if you can afford it? If you can afford to make that purchase, does that mean you should jump right in and do it? And the answer would be no. Really take the time to consider any purchases you are going to make. Have a think about them, not just for a couple of days, but for a couple of weeks, even up to a month, to make sure you're absolutely 100% committed to that purchase. Don't make impulse purchases and just spend money frivolously, because you will probably come to regret it. So just because you may have the money to spend, make sure that that purchase is something you're actually going to be happy with later on down the line. And don't forget, if you don't make that purchase, that could be additional money that you are saving for something bigger, for something better, or for your future. Tip number 3 in this section is to track your spending in some way, whether that's budgeting beforehand, so you've designated money to the areas that you spend in, or you track it after you've spent, just so you can keep an eye on it and make sure it is sensible and not getting out of hand. If you struggle with your finances, it is really important that you understand the bigger picture in terms of your spending and your saving. You need to know what is coming in and you need to know what is going out, and then you can have a better idea of what money is freed up to do the things you want to do and spend in the ways you want to. And you'll just feel more secure knowing your numbers and knowing what you have and haven't got to spend. And that leads us on to the next category, which is the savings category. And my first tip in this one, if you have seen any of my savings videos before, you will know this one. I sound like a broken record, but that is to prioritize your savings. For me personally, just to give you an example, I pay my bills first, including my mortgage. That is my first priority. They are my necessities to live my life. Savings comes second. I designate a percentage of my income to go into various places for savings and investments. It's only after that that I have money left over to use freely, whereas so many people do it the opposite way. They do their bills first, they understand that priority, but then money is free for enjoyment and they do all the things they want to and they splash out and they buy all the things they want and think they need, and then any money left over at the end of the month maybe that will go into savings. But not always, because there might not be any money left at the end of the month if they've been pretty spendy in that month. If you do it the other way around, you're making your savings and at the same time you are leaving yourself a little bit of free money or flexible money that you can go out and enjoy. I am not saying not to enjoy your money and have a good time with it, because honestly, what is the point in us all going to work if we don't enjoy our money a little bit? But at the same time, let's be sensible. If saving is important to you, if you want money put aside for your future, you've got to make the conscious effort to save. And sometimes that means something in the fun section, the enjoyment spending, might have to give. Not everything has to give though. You're not going to be completely miserable. It's just maybe one or two things have to give so that you can have this saving for your future. And it's all about prioritizing what is more important to you. Having a smaller amount of enjoyment but some security in your savings, or blowing it all on fun but having nothing left over at the end. So make savings your second priority ahead of all that free spend and enjoyment money if you are serious about building up your savings. My next tip in this category is have a goal, have something to save for, or an amount of money you want to save and an amount you want to reach. If it's something you're saving for, whether it's your dream home or a nice trip somewhere or early retirement, or even if you just want the security of having a bit of money set aside in case of emergencies, have a goal or have a financial goal. Have an amount that you would be happy with, that you would feel comfortable with if you had that pot of money saved up and secure somewhere. You might start with a smaller goal and you might increase that over time. But if you've got a goal, if you've got something to be saving for, you will be far more motivated and more likely to save money to achieve that goal. And my last tip in this category is to move your money out of reach. I had to do this because when I first started this journey, I couldn't trust myself not to make impulse purchases. I'm a lot better now, I've developed in that area, but if you can't trust yourself with your money, move it out of reach. What I mean by this is put it into a separate account. So when you get paid, detach that money from your main current account or bank account, the one where you've got your debit card that you can spend money freely on. If you move that money into another account, such as a savings account, then that money isn't attached to your card when you're out and about. So if you wanted to impulse buy, you are not able to. I move mine into separate savings accounts and then it's not attached to my debit card. When I'm out and about, or even if I shop online, it's not even in that account, so I can't spend it. It's not there. It's moved securely into a savings account where it would take more effort for me to transfer it back if I needed to. Depending on the account, you don't have to lock that money away. You can just get it back by a direct transfer, but that will be more effort, and so you'll be less inclined to just spend it freely because you'd have to move it back into your main account to then go and spend it. But it's something to consider if you feel like you fall for impulse purchases too much because the money is just there and ready for you to spend it. Move it out of the way so you can't get a hold of it right there in that moment when you're about to impulse buy. And the final category is about investing, and this might be more useful to anyone who is new to investing, wants to invest but doesn't know where to begin, or finds the whole process a little bit daunting. So tip number one is to do your research. And I know that's the boring bit, and that's probably the thing that is stopping you from investing in the first place. I feel like I'm only just starting with this and I am far from being secure in my own knowledge, but I do wish I'd started sooner. I wish I'd started sooner so that at this point, by the time I got to this point in my savings journey, I felt more comfortable and secure investing. So read books, watch videos on YouTube, find out about investing if it's something you want to get involved in. Put in your research, not only with the process of investing, but the different ways you can invest, the different types of accounts you can have, and look at the advantages and disadvantages of each one, and make sure you are investing safely and you understand the risk. However, feeding on from that, and the second tip in this group is, I do feel like you learn more actually doing it and just going for it. So set up an account and play around with it and maybe put a little bit of money in there. Just make sure you're playing it safe. An example of this is I recently set up an eToro account because I was interested in learning about that. They were brilliant because they give you a virtual portfolio for you to play with. So I played around with that for a few days until I had a better understanding. And then I just put in £100 of my own money to play with. I made sure I knew the basics that I needed to know just to ensure I was trading safely. So for example, making sure I was only trading with my own money and not using leverage to increase that. As long as you're sort of cautious and you don't just jump in and throw all your money in without really knowing what you're doing, then you can kind of learn in the process. Just play it safe and be sensible. And my last tip, and I actually think this is my favourite tip out of all of them, which is why I've saved it till the end, and it is a complete mindset shift. And I wish I had thought like this sooner, because I was very much under the impression that investing was very risky, which, you know, it is, it can be, and it should be avoided unless, you know, you're really rich and you've got loads of money to play around with. I saw myself as a person that can't afford to take a lot of risk because I don't have a lot of spare money lying around. But it took a mindset shift for me to realise I do actually have a little bit of money that I would be willing to risk. And the way that I realised this was when I had cut back on my spending and I noticed that there was a little bit of money left over, which was my sort of free to spend money. It was after I prioritised all my savings. And I realised I could save this money in a savings account, but it wasn't really earning a lot of interest, and I already had accounts that were doing a bit of that for me, so it'd be nice if I put a bit of money somewhere else. I could waste it on clothes and makeup and things I didn't really need, which would, over time, just not add value to my life. Or I could try a bit of investing, and I really just had to find the amount that I was comfortable to invest. So for example, the first thing I did was I set up a stocks and shares ISA, and I just put £100 in that every month. There is an element of risk there, but I figured that I was perfectly happy to risk losing £100 a month with the possibility of gaining something out of it, compared to wasting £100 a month on clothes and makeup and things I don't really need. Either way, £100 was going out of my account. What would I prefer? That I wasted it on things I don't really need, or invest it potentially with the risk of losing it, but with the potential of it earning money? And all it took was for me to sort of think about my money differently. And that's everything. Those are my 9 tips or pieces of advice, or just things I wish I'd known and started sooner on my financial journey. I really hope some of those tips were useful. As I said at the start, not all of them may have applied to you, but hopefully you'll be able to take something away from this video. Please feel free to comment any other tips down below so other people in our community can follow your advice and get ideas about good saving, spending and investing strategies. If you enjoy videos about finance, I will post a video just here. This is my video about how I break down my income into saving, spending and investing. So if that's something that will interest you, please go and check that out. And if you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon.